Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon and I are diving deep into NBA awards for the first quarter of the 2024-25 season. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? I had a very enjoyable weekend. I had a nice prime rib, cream corn, and mashed potato Thanksgiving supper. Watched an absolutely disgusting Chiefs win in person. Almost got snowed in Saturday morning before we headed home. And my oldest son fell in love and became addicted to college football on PlayStation 5. So it was
good outcome.
Yeah, listen, I can't be mad at it. He's buying it with his own money. He saved up his own money to buy the console, and then his grandparents and stuff, he'll get some Christmas presents for the games. But I mean, I was a college football kid whenever I was his age, so I would be lying if I say I didn't take the controller away from him every once in a while to get a few plays in myself.
Have to do it. You absolutely have to do it. I mean, look, it wasn't Thanksgiving weekend here. We had our Thanksgiving last weekend, like we talked about on the show. This weekend, yesterday was just like an insane day where it was just madness kind of everywhere because our garage door broke. So I had to have someone come out and fix that. And then we went out and got a Christmas tree. And then I also went out and got an air conditioner, which leads into why we're a little bit late going today, because there may or may not be some bird sounds happening outside of the window that I didn't think would be able to get through all of the like insulation for the window for the air conditioner. So yeah, it's a bit of things happening here in the Vecenie office and in the Vecenie home with my wife Laura. So we're trying to get everything all set. And then I had to cut the grass as well because as you know, Bryce, lawn care is important care. Around here,
it's got to be a top priority. I mean, for me, it's top 2 or 3. So I assume for you, it's got to be high up there as well. I'm jealous that you are getting to continue to manicure your lawn while mine is done growing. I cut down all of the plants today, because they're dead and it's time to get rid of them, and put the Grinch, the probably 12-foot Grinch in my yard today that I'm just praying doesn't kill my grass.
Didn't do any of that. Literally just cut the grass. And like, honestly, because what do you call a like a line cutter?
Weed eater?
No, the thing that spins like a weed. Yeah, maybe it's a weed
I call
eater.
it a weed eater, like to make your line straight along the edges and all of that.
Yeah, and to like get down on the edges as well.
Yeah.
And really it's kind of like break down the grass. That was like out of battery yesterday. So I had to like keep going back and forth. And eventually, like for the back, I was just like, fuck this. Like I'm done. Yeah. Weed whacker. Shout out Dirty Dancer in the comments. That is definitely what I called it growing up. But that was fun. Laura and I will decorate the tree tonight and do all that stuff. I think this is the earliest we've gotten a Christmas tree since we've been here. So that's really exciting. That's everything that's here. That was the weekend. And, I did well. I only bought 2 books and 2 movies this weekend. I didn't go insane with Black Friday sales.
Good for you, Sam. That's good restraint. I love hearing that.
I'm very, very proud of myself for that. Okay, Bryce, today's episode is the awards episode for the first quarter of the season, the way we are going to do this throughout the year. First quarter awards, midpoint awards, 3 quarters of the season awards, end of season awards, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go right around like the 20 game mark for everybody, the 40 game mark for everybody, the 60 game mark for everybody, and then end of season. As we do these award shows throughout the year, these are based on what has happened to this point.
Yeah.
These are not awards predicting the future.
Yep.
So even if I think LeBron is going to figure it out at some point and become much better than what he's been to this point, he does not feature here because he has not been great to this point this year. So there's no forward projection here.
Yep.
But we do need to at least acknowledge some sort of barometer for missed games up front. The way I did it at this point was anybody who has not suffered like a long-term season affecting injury and has played at least half of his team's games is eligible. So Chet Holmgren, who's played like 9.2 out of 19 games for the Oklahoma City Thunder and has suffered a long-term injury. Despite the fact that even with that, he came like dangerously close to being an all defense guy for me. I still did not have him there.
Yes. So I just simply did the 10 games played. So he's one I actually used, but he's the one, I guess, now that you mentioned the long-term injury that he's still dealing with, I may need to reconsider now as I look through that. But essentially I said 10 games played because I'm like, almost everybody's played 20. If you've already only played 10, you can only miss 7 more games, something like
Polo
that.
is down to like, he can only miss like 7 more games.
Yeah. So
at this point this year.
Yeah. So Chet should fall into that considering he's not back yet. So I need to quickly adjust that because he definitely would have came into the conversation on defense.
And look, like Chet's just not going to be eligible for awards this year. Like that's just the reality of where it is. As much as I would love to give him some, love for as good as he was early in the season, he's only played half the year and he's not going to be eligible. So like, let's just kind of remove him from the conversation. In terms of the way I went about it, look, I mean, people know that I have taken diligent notes throughout the year and I have literally broken down tape for like most of these guys that we're going to talk about on the show today. On top of that, certainly I will look at numbers, certainly across the board from advanced analytics to just scoring numbers to efficiency numbers to everything else, and just kind of come up with a vague outline of what matters to me as a basketball player and what doesn't.
So especially for this one, I tried to just do it based off my memory of every game I've watched this year. And similar to you, I mean, I could show people my Google Drive of games watched. And whenever I have a game watched and take notes, it's a full game where I pause and rewind and like, okay, who broke down there? I need to make a note of that. All of that. I feel pretty confident about how many games I've watched this year. So I initially tried to do it off of that. And then I will say, I did some basic stats like, okay, is this guy shooting as well as what I think he is based off the games I've watched? Every once in a while, there's a player who plays really well or really bad in the games you watch specifically. And then the other games aren't quite as good. I didn't look at the analytic numbers as much. I kind of wanted to just go off my eye test, my notes, and then some of those stats to back it up just a little bit, just to see where I landed. But I feel pretty good about where I'm at, and I'm interested to compare with where yours landed as well.
Yep. Okay. Are you ready to do this, Bryce? We are going to start with MVP.
Let's do it.
Okay. For MVP, we will go 5-1.
Okay.
My number 5 choice for MVP, as in I would have him 5th on my ballot, is Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Anthony Davis, to this point, this season, is averaging 28 points, 11.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, shooting 55.5% from the field, 36% from 3, 78% from the line. He has just been everything for the Lakers at this point. He is, to me, one of the most valuable players in the league to his team as well. Forget just like one of the best players, but one of the most valuable guys right now, because as we know, LeBron has not been great to start this year. He's actually been quite rough. If you look at any of the advanced numbers, the on-offs, everything like that. Austin Reeves this season hasn't had the best start to his career. D'Angelo Russell is just a roller coaster of up and down performances. He has games where he plays really well. He has games where I think he's like borderline unplayable at times. Their defense has been a real issue throughout the year. They've obviously gotten the great standout rookie performance from Dalton Knecht. We'll talk about him later. But by and large, they have been a very injury-riddled team, and they have needed somebody to step up, and Anthony Davis has been the one that has stepped up.
So my guess is we end up with the same top four. I'm mostly interested in see in what order each of us have those four guys in. I think the fifth spot, at least for me, was the spot where it got a little bit interesting. I actually had AD as my top guy on the second team. I still, and listen, I know that this guy hasn't played as many games. And maybe at this point, you know, to what you said earlier, where we are evaluating on what they've done this year, I think I would still just rather Luka Doncic be, you know, on my team. Like, I just think Luka Doncic is still a better player right now. So Luka ended up being my fifth first team all NBA guy at this point in the season.
Sure. And I don't think that's like a completely insane thing to say. I have Luka a little bit lower. I ended up Luka at like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
in that ballpark more. But yeah, no, like I think Anthony Davis has been absolutely outstanding. It feels like JJ Redick is really weaponizing him, especially in bench units where he is the guy that like runs those for the most part for the Lakers, gets every chance to create shots out of those situations. The other big thing with Anthony Davis to this point, he is shooting quite a bit from three. He's taking 2 attempts per game, 36% on those. He's been quite effective to this point this year in knocking down mid-range shots. It feels like to me anecdotally, I mean, I'll look it up while we're talking, but you know, actually he's not, he's at like 35% on mid-range shots to this point, but it feels like they're having him take those. He's taking like 3 or 4 per game, and it's opened up the rest of his game. It feels like to me where teams have to guard him out there, and then he's able to drive. It opens up his passing game a little bit more often. I think he has been about as well-rounded offensively under JJ Redick as I have seen him be. And defensively, he's just been, you know, everything that you would hope for. He didn't feature on one of my all defense teams because I just didn't want to reward the Lakers in all honesty.
So maybe maybe I discounted him too much for that in terms of like this MVP all NBA, because he didn't end up on one of my all defensive teams either, because they're just so bad defensively. And I realize like you can go down the list of the reasons why they aren't Anthony Davis. I just have a hard time putting somebody on an all. I know we're not getting there yet, but maybe then I took that and discounted it a little bit too much whenever I looked at the well-rounded package of what he does offensively, what he does on the boards, and how much worse that defense would be yet if he wasn't on it. And so I think that's a good argument for him here as we're talking about, you know, the fifth MVP. You know, to me, I just look at who are your first team all NBA guys, and, you know, looking at him as this a first team all NBA guy.
So give me the Luka case here.
I mean, I just think the way I looked at it after the top 4 was, who do I think is the best player in the game after those 4 guys? And listen, I know the percentages aren't great, but he's still averaging 28. He's averaging 7.5 rebounds. He's averaging 7.5 assists. I've always questioned his defense, probably even last year still as much as people, but 1.5 steals, that everything still does run through him in Dallas. So I just think that when I look at someone and say, okay, of these next guys, who do I think is the best player? I still think it's Luka.
Yeah, look, I don't think that's unfair by any stretch. Luka has not been at his best throughout the course of the year. If you look at the numbers, you can see that like he just hasn't quite shot as well as what we've seen previously, kind of across all swaths of the game. That's been an issue for sure for him. Feels like the rebounds and assists, like those numbers are down a little bit as they try and integrate a little bit more of like they're using Kyrie a little bit more often. They're also using the bigs out high to initiate more. I would expect that his numbers, like across the rebounding and assist numbers, necessarily don't reach these crazy heights that
Well,
we've
I mean,
seen, because they're just using him less a little bit, it feels like, within the course of their offense.
think about who he competes against whenever you're just talking about raw rebounding stats. Not only, people will immediately say Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. PJ Washington leads this team in rebounds at 9 a game. So you have 9 from PJ, you have 7, and then you essentially have 14 between Lively and Gafford. Not to mention Kyrie, who rebounds well, Quentin Grimes, who's hit the defensive boards. Like, there's just a lot of competition there. And so, again, I thought the top 4 was pretty easy in terms of the 4 names. After that, there's some guys I like. There's some guys who I think are having really good seasons, Anthony Davis included. I just said, who do I think is the best player of this next tier of guys? And I still think that's Luka Doncic.
Sure. I think that is reasonable. Okay. So my guy at number 4, I think, is based off of just like recency bias, going to surprise people. I ended up with Giannis at number 4.
Wow. Okay.
And the only reason that I ended up with Giannis at 4 is because, like you said, I think that the top 4 names should very clearly be the top 4 names.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis
100%.
Antetokounmpo.
Yep. Same page.
I think that the other 3 names have been a bit more consistent throughout the course of the entire 20-ish game sample to this point than Giannis has. If this was purely based off of the last 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, I would have Giannis at number 1. I think he has very clearly been the best player in the league over the course of that stretch. I don't really even know that it's all that close. His early start to the season, though, when the Bucks really struggled, which is why they have not been very good comparatively to these other 3 teams here. If you look at their record, it's just not quite as positive, right? Despite the fact that he plays with Damian Lillard and Brook Lopez, guys that I think are better than, I would argue, anybody on the Denver roster to this stage. That is why they started the year 1-6. And really, you can say 1-5 because he didn't play the 7th game. But I thought that his play, even though the numbers say that, he was really good during those games too, if you actually went back and watched them, I thought that his defense was not very good in those games. And I thought that he was not quite as good in those games. Having said that, I also just shit on the guy that I have at number 4 in MVP for a minute and a half there. Giannis has been unbelievable for the last 3.5 weeks. He has been very clearly the best player in the league. I think during that stretch, he has been as well-rounded offensively as I think I have seen him, just point blank. His ability to now step out and knock down mid-range jumpers has completely changed and altered the gravity that he has offensively, and allows him to become even more weaponized getting downhill off the bounce. I also think that some of the synergy stuff with him and Lillard is slowly but surely getting better. If you made me guess where this is going in the future, I think he's probably the only one to me that could challenge Jokic based off of what I've seen this year.
Yeah, I mean,
but I just think that the early, 7 games here do need to be considered within this. It's basically a third of the sample that we're talking about here. And I think that first third of the sample dropped him down to number 4 for me. And that's the only reason why he's 4.
So I assume, based off what you just said, you're still going to have somebody with, I was going to say about Giannis and Jokic, that if their teams had better records, I don't think it'd be any question who was 1 and 2. I think the only reason you can make arguments for Giannis being 4, I don't know what kind of argument we will make for SGA and Tatum versus Jokic and all of that. But I think those 2 guys play on the 2 best teams in the NBA. And right now, Giannis and Jokic don't. And if they did, if their teams were even a little bit better, where what Jokic is 10-7, the Nuggets are 10-7, the Bucks are 10-9, I think it would be hard to have those conversations when these guys are putting up these numbers. The last 9 games for Giannis, to go with the numbers you have on the screen right now, 35, 11, and 8, shooting 61% from the field. Like, it's ridiculous how good he's been. I've watched him knock down jumpers, those mid-range jumpers when he's needed to. When he's doing that, it's impossible to stop him. I don't know what the mid-range jumpers say for him, but again, some of the games I've watched, he's knocked him down whenever teams have really played off. He gets to the, free throw line, and I feel like that defense is slowly starting to get a little bit better.
I agree.
I don't know how much we give him credit versus Brook Lopez versus both. It's versus Andre Jackson Jr., whatever, but it's definitely not some of the other guys. I would assume that Giannis has quite a bit to do with that. So I had him 3rd, but I'm cool with him being 4th based off a little bit of a slower start and the win-loss overall.
Yeah, look, these guys are all razor thin outside of Jokic at 1 to me. Like, and we'll talk about Jokic when we get to 1. But like, if you want to have Giannis at 2, I'm completely the way he's played the last 3 weeks is like completely like mind bending to me. He has been he's been the best player in the league for the last 3 weeks. I don't even know that that's arguable at this point. I just ended up hitting him a little bit for the start because given that we are so early in the season, that is 1/3 of the sample still. And that is a lot. That's a large swath of games to have not played quite at this level to this point. And okay, who did you have it? Well, go ahead.
I say, and if he plays 40, if he plays the next 20 games the way he's played the last 10, and now that's a much less percentage, and they make a run in they have actually a big game against the Pistons on Tuesday that I think kind of decides who gets into the NBA Cup. Like, the Bucks win that game, they go make a run in the NBA Cup and all of this, and all of a sudden the narrative is going to change and really start to swing in his favor, especially if he starts to get his team into the top 4 in the East. Like, you can't hold the win-loss. I had Tatum at 4. I had Giannis just a little bit above him. I love Tatum. I love what he's done. I threw out the stat of him, being one of 2 players to lead his teams in point, rebounds, assists. I love the way he's rebounded. I love the way he's passed the ball. He's the best player on the best team in the NBA. I love Tatum. I still think Giannis is a better player. So it was very razor thin there. I gave Giannis just a little bit of a nod over Tatum, but I had Tatum 4 and then Giannis 3.
Okay. So let's do this the way I had them ranked because it'll be a little bit easier. I had Shea at 3.
Okay.
I had Tatum at 2.
Interesting.
So Shea has been just like, to me, it's hard to say because I think that Shea and Tatum are so different in terms of the way that like their consistent just dominance kind of wears on an opponent, right? Like, Tatum, I think, is a more versatile player as far as you can throw him on the block. He's able to run the offense in a similar way to Shea can. He is, I don't know, probably, I guess, a little bit worse of a passer, but not quite as bad of a pass. Like, not, I don't know. I think they're pretty close now. I guess as passers, they just get utilized in different ways. Shea has the ball a little bit more often, so I think the assist numbers will always be a little bit higher, but I feel like when Tatum gets doubled, he makes the right decisions. That offense is so good at keeping everything in flow and rhythm that, there are a lot of hockey assists, potential assists, things like that kind of go wanting from time to time. I do think Tatum is a better defender than Shea. I know that Shea gets all of the blocks and steals. I think that Tatum is just a little bit better as an on-ball defender. I think he's a more important piece of that Boston defense as well. So I ended up going with him slightly ahead of Shea, but let's talk about Shea to start, who I had at number 3. What have you appreciated about Shea's game to this point?
I mean, every time I watch him, it's the decelerate, it's the start-stop, it's the patience, it's the nuance he plays with, the way he gets to his spots in the mid-range. And the other thing is he's more physical of a driver than I think what he gets credit for sometimes. He's not like this big, bulky looking dude like a Giannis, like a Tatum, like an Anthony Edwards, but he still plays through contact. every time I feel like my notes are the same thing about the start stop and the decel and he'll give him the little chicken wing, which Tatum does that as well. So I just really appreciate the nuance of his game. I think I'm probably with you that the conversation of who the better passer is would be fascinating, because I think people would immediately say SGA, but I think maybe the raw numbers are probably like you said, because SGA plays with the ball in his hands a little more. I probably give SGA a little bit the benefit, because I do think that entire offense runs through him. As good as J-Dub is, when SGA is on the floor, I feel like he's the focal point, and he's done it without the floor spacing big in Chet so far. At some games without a big, well, sometimes it's been floor spacing Jalen Williams. So I don't know, maybe that's not a good argument. But and I do think he's a good cog. I mean, he's in a perfect scenario for what he does defensively, but he plays that role very well as the kind of roamer, disruptor, steals, blocks, because they have all these other guys to take the primary matchups. So, like, I don't think he's an all defensive team guy like some people talk sometimes, but I do think he's
I
an
don't either.
Yeah, I didn't even consider him on my list, to be honest with you. But I do think he's an important cog on the best defense in the NBA, or at least one that is productive in the role he's asked to play.
This is a really good question. He might be like the 6th or 7th best defender on Oklahoma City, which isn't like a statement of him. It's more a statement of everybody else. Like, I think Casey Wallace is a better defender than he is. I think that, certainly Alex Caruso, both Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein are better defenders. Jalen Williams is definitely a better defender. Jalen Williams is going to feature on my all defense team, by the way.
Interesting.
Lou Dort, that's number 6. Like, seriously, that's not a statement on Shea. I think Shea is like really good at playing that free safety role. He's long, like here, like Seasons and Sloan brings up, like Shea is a positive on defense compared to Luke, or as opposed to Luka. I actually really agree with that. Like, even though we're saying like Shea is not quite as important to their defense as, someone like Jason Tatum, he's still like a good defender. Like, he's not a bad defender by any stretch of the imagination. So I do think that Tatum's just overall impact on the defensive end is a little bit better. I think that his length that he's able to take up on the weak side, you can really feel that. Even at a bit of a greater level than you can with Shea's ability to disrupt and just get steals and blocks, right? Like, Tatum isn't as loud of a defender, but I feel like his ability to take up space on that end and end up helping on the weak side and rim protecting and being able to, even though he ends up averaging like fewer blocks, and being able to take on bigger matchups across the wing one-on-one, I think that Tatum has him pretty clearly on the defensive end, if I'm being honest. In terms of just like pure shot creation, obviously Shea has that. Like, Shea is unbelievable with that. I think Tatum is excellent in that regard. Like, Tatum's an unbelievable shot creator. He's a mismatch hunter. I think he's a little bit more versatile in how he gets to it. It's just that Shea's ability in ISO or in ball screens is so unstoppable that it's really, really hard to, account for that on some level. Ultimately, I did kind of just go with the fact that I think Tatum is like it's hard to say like who's more important to each team.
Sure.
Right. I think they're probably about equally as important to their team. But I do think that, I would say they're about equally as important to their team. It's just, I prefer the versatility that Tatum brings as compared to Shea, I think, at the end of the day, both on and off the ball.
The one thing that really I like Tatum and what he's done offensively this year, we're talking about the defense and how he's a little better than Shea there because the versatility. Like, offensively, he gets to the free throw line just as much as Shea and shoots almost double the amount of threes. So, like, Tatum, for all of the conversation around the 3-point attempts, he's getting to the free throw line. He is a good passer. Again, he's a good rebounder. He's shooting a really good percent. I think SGA being a 50% shooter on his shot diet is ridiculous, but it's not like Tatum is inefficient or something like that. He's actually very efficient considering how many threes he shoots and how much he gets to the free throw line, even though he's not quite as good there. So I feel like we have to say this a lot. To me, like, I'm not going to quibble or really argue about somebody that has Tatum above SGA, or if somebody had Giannis 2 or whatever. Like, I'm cool with all of it. Like, I think Tatum has been incredible this year. I also think SGA has, and Giannis, and of course the other player we'll talk about eventually also.
Yeah. So anything else on Tatum before we get to the guy at number 1, or do we just want to move forward?
No, I mean, I think we gave him his due credit. Like, I don't want to shortchange him, but I think we talked about the versatility defensively, how far he's come offensively, his passing offensively, all of that. I mean, I think he is, again, he is the best player on the best team in the NBA. And I think even more so than last year, just like his individual performance right now is warranting this conversation, where I think last year, a lot of people talked about him first team all NBA just because best player on best team, where this year it's like, no, this dude is just really, really good.
Yeah. The guy we have at number 1 is Nikola Jokic.
Is he
Nikola
good?
Jokic currently averaging a triple-double. He's averaging 29.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, 10.6 assists, shooting 57, 53, 83. That is, I can't really even wrap my head around how good that is offensively. I actually think this is like his 17, 15 games, whatever he's played so far. I think this is the best I've ever seen an offensive player play. I'm actually just going to start there. I think truly, in terms of dominating the game across the play, like across everything, especially that stretch after Denver had like lost its first couple of home games and had just looked like, like there were some real issues there. I think that like 7 or 8 game stretch after that was actually literally probably the best I've ever seen a player play on offense. He was so dominant in terms of, despite the fact that his team does not have a whole lot of spacing around him, still being able to create easy cutting angles, easy passing reads to his teammates, being incredibly efficient. He took all of it on his shoulders. I look, the defense is not as good as some of these other guys. I think he is so good on offense that it almost doesn't matter at this point.
Okay, where do we think his defense is though? Like, I don't watch him and like, oh my gosh, this is just like, obviously there's real limitations. I think at times there's effort limitations, but he's very active with this. Like, he's so much better in ball screen defense than you would just think based on all of that, because he's really good with his hands.
So I think the last 4 or 5 games, he's kind of dropped down a little bit in terms of that effort in ball screens, particularly. Like, if you go back and you watch the Knicks game where the Knicks hung like 140 on them, it was rough.
Okay.
Like it was not great. But again, this is a player that just completely orchestrates and dominates every single facet of the game on offense. He will be a 7-footer or 6'11", whatever he is, that brings the ball up the court and then initiates a set. Like, he will be the point guard in a horn set. He will be the corner guy in a horn set who goes and posts. He will be the guy at the elbows who is like completely dominant in those spots. You can run any sort of action for him outside of that. Like, I've never seen somebody this versatile on offense. I've never seen somebody this unselfish that like is able to, for his position, dominate the game in the way that Jokic does. I'm just actually going to say this. I think we are watching like a top 10 guy of all time. I don't think he gets those kind of like accolades immediately. But the more I watch him, the more I'm like, this human being is unlike anything I've ever watched in my life. Like, I've gone back and watched older Larry Bird clips, right? And I've watched maybe like 10 or 12 of Larry Bird's like best games. I don't know, man. When I watch Jokic, I'm like, this is different. Like, I think he's a better passer. Bird is a way better shooter, obviously, but like, he's a more consistent shooter at the very least. But for guys that like got by through being the smartest guy of their era on the court, basically. Bird and Jokic. Like, I think that is a way that we can compare those two players, right? I think Jokic's ability to take you down on the block is just different. It is able to dominate and get to that like little weird ass like Sombor shuffle or like a hook shot with his right hand or those up and unders or whatever. I think that the passing ability, he's just a better passer than what Larry Bird was. I'm sorry. Like, Jokic is going to go down as one of the 2 or 3 best passers to ever play basketball, I think. I think that that's the conversation we need to have about Jokic at this point, not just like, you know, oh, he's like one of the 25 best players of all time and he led them to a title, whatever. No, this is a true, we are lucky to be watching this guy player, and we need to account for that in a way that I think we don't necessarily do enough now.
Well, and I think him winning it, if he would win it again this year, like, I think people will really start to realize that. Because I remember the conversation before the season was like, what would he have to do to win it again? Right? He's already won 3. He won back-to-back 21, 22, year off, won it last year, 24. And it's like, okay, are they going to give it to him again whenever all of these other really, really good players, like, are you going to give it to Jokic if, you know, the Celtics win a bunch of games and Tatum is awesome, or the Thunder crush the West and SGA is awesome, or Giannis averages what Giannis is averaging? And it's like, even with all of that going on, it's still Jokic because he's even better. He's averaging a triple double. He's shooting over 50% from 3 on volume. And you know why he's shooting that volume, Sam? Because he has to, because that's what his team needs him to do offensively to be successful. And so I think he wins 4 in 5 years back to back again. I mean, I think it just speaks to how great he is. I don't think it's hyperbole to call him one of the all-time greats of the game. And when you start calling people that, I think top 10, top 15, stuff like that is part of the equation. Like, that's part of the conversation.
And I think some people, you know, maybe shortchange like Bird's peak on some level as well, like, because of obviously he dealt with a lot of back injuries throughout his career, right? Larry Bird still had an 8-year consecutive stretch where he was the top 3 MVP guy. Like, literally every single year was top 3 in MVP. This would be Jokic, you know, for what would this be? 5 straight years of top 5 or top 2 in MVP if he was to win it again. Not even to speak to what Jokic has done, just to speak to the situation around him. Jamal Murray has not been consistently good throughout the course of this season. Aaron Gordon has been hurt, obviously.
Played 7 games.
Yep. Christian Brown's been really good, but you know that he's a starter in the NBA, right? Michael Porter Jr., after a rough start, has been really good over the last like 13, 14 games, I would say.
Yep.
But beyond those guys, like, this bench unit is one of the league's worst. And they're still finding ways to win with Nikola Jokic. Like, this team is still 10-7 somehow, and is still in like a pretty positive situation.
Yep.
So yeah, Nikola Jokic, very clearly to me, the number 1 in the MVP race right now. 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists per game. Like, as a center, are you kidding me? Just mind-meldingly good.
Yes.
Mind-meldingly good. Okay. Before we get to the next set of awards, which will be all NBA, let's take a quick break here to shout out our 2 sponsors for today. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. We absolutely love PrizePicks here at Game Theory because of how easy they make it to get real money sports action. If you think Justin Jefferson's going to get more than what his yardage total is for next week, if you think that, you know, the god Trey McBride is going to keep dominating the receptions total for the Arizona Cardinals, he had 12 again today, you can make those picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. over on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Second sponsor today, Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth for just $5 per month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Okay, so I'm just assuming you didn't fuck around with all NBA here and not make your top 5 in MVP your top 5 for the first team all NBA. Right?
No, I did not. I kept it the same.
Okay. So first team all NBA for both of us. To confirm is Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Okay. So I will read off my second team.
Okay.
We both have Luka Doncic second team right now.
Yep.
I have Stephen Curry here.
Okay.
I have Victor here.
Okay.
I have Franz Wagner here.
Okay.
And I have Donovan Mitchell here. Did we go 2 for 5? It sounds like
2 for 5.
Okay.
To be clear, the other 3 were third team, so it's not like there were names that I wasn't expecting. I'll be honest, like I didn't put crazy amount of like I did that top 5, the top 4, then the 5th, and then we can quibble about the next group, but I had Donovan second team, I had Doncic second team, and then I had Steph, Victor, and Franz right there.
Okay, so who were your second teams? You have.
I had
read
KD,
the full list.
I have Durant. I had Kyrie, who I think has been incredible this year, and Jaylen Brown.
Okay, and then who was your 5th? You had Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah. So I had
Okay.
Donovan and Luka were the 2 that we had the same. And then I just had those guys second team, Curry, Victor, Franz third team instead of second.
Okay. So let's talk through this a little bit here. I ended up, let's talk through Mitchell first. We've talked through Luka a little bit.
Yeah.
I really thought that somebody on the Cavs deserved at least second team status here.
Same.
To me, Mitchell has been their most important player. I think that he has been a little bit better than Darius Garland, and I think he has been a little bit more effective overall than Evan Mobley. He's averaging 24 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 45, 39, 82. But it does feel like he is the guy that like really stirs the drink for them if you watch them kind of night to night. Garland does an incredible job in ball screens. I think particularly with Jared Allen, I really feel that synergy all the time with those two. It is difficult to pinpoint one player for this group to me, though.
Yeah.
It does feel like just a team that plays incredibly well together, has a lot of synergy from having now played. This is their 3rd year together. And it feels like to me that when I watch them, that is their biggest strength over other teams, especially now that Kenny Atkinson has them like really free flowing offensively. It was hard to pick one player. I ended up with Donovan Mitchell out of that group. And I think that Donovan has been unbelievable to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially where I went with it as well. I wanted to reward them for, as you mentioned, this isn't a projection of where we think teams will be at the end of the year. At the end of the day, when we're recording this, they have the best record in the NBA after a crazy start. I know it's, they've dropped a couple recently. I think Donovan probably is the most important player, although as you outlined, Garland's been great. I think Mobley's been awesome. I think in general, that team has just accepted their role, but I wanted to reward them with a second team player. So that's why I had Donovan there.
Fair enough. So the other guys that we could have considered from them, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, I would have Allen just like a slight level below
Same.
these guys.
Yep.
Mobley has been really good on defense. We're going to talk about Mobley later on. Garland isn't going to get mentioned here, so maybe just like a quick word on Darius Garland. He's averaging 21, 2 rebounds, 7 assists per game, shooting 49, 44, 94 from the field so far. I do just think that his defense does like strain them a little bit. He's been better throughout the course of the year. Yeah. But I think that the big differentiator between him and Mitchell so far for me this year has actually been that defensive end. Mitchell has really locked in on that end comparatively to where he was, where he's been at times for Cleveland, maybe is the fair way to put it. So I ended up going Mitchell over him. We'll talk about Mobley in the defensive categories later on. Okay. So let's go through mine first, and then we'll go through yours, because I think we're going to have overlap second team and third team.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Victor, because I think he's probably the one that will be interesting for people. So Victor didn't start incredibly well this year. Having said that, the Spurs are now 10-9 this year on a team that, like, Jeremy Sohan has missed all but 7 games. Devin Vassell has missed all but 4 games. Trey Jones has missed all but 7 games. So this is a team that is above 500 in the Western Conference, with Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, Chris Paul, Julian Champagnie, Harrison Barnes.
Yep.
I had to go Wemby here. He's averaging 23 points, shooting 47, 34, 87, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and he has 5 stocks per game. We will get to him on the defensive end as well.
Yep.
The Spurs are currently 10th in defensive rating. They have a plus net rating. So this isn't like some weird, win-loss shit that's happening. I just think that he has very clearly been one of the more valuable players, if not like one of the 5 most valuable players to his team this year. Like he is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, listen, I'm with it. I think a lot of these will change between second and third team. He was one of my first third teamers. Maybe I'm just a little bit slow moving him up the list, which I tend to be, especially whenever I knew where I was going to have him on the next conversation. So I don't have any question. Like, I think the biggest argument is his team is winning, right? Like, I think this would be more of a question if they were 5-14, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, all this stuff is great, but they don't have a winning record.
Yeah, it's why I didn't end up with LaMelo Ball anywhere. Right?
Yeah,
because that team is not very good.
Yeah,
and with him, Victor is leading them to wins.
Yep, LaMelo's on my long list of players. I have another 15 or so players that I just, as I went through, I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this person's name down. Don't think they're gonna make it, but I'm gonna put their name. LaMelo's there because he's been awesome offensively, scoring the ball. But Victor's two-way impact, as you mentioned, after a slow start, been really good. They haven't even been healthy. So again, I'm cool with it. I'm not going to sit here and argue about that one. I'm okay keeping him on third team for now. I wouldn't be shocked if they continue to win. He continues to grow. If we're not having a conversation about him as that 5th person on the first team by the end of the year. And I think for sure, if things continue this way, he very well can end up on second team.
Stephen Curry, to this point this year, has just been such an incredible leader for Golden State. If you watch them, we talk a lot about their depth, right? But over the last 10 games or so, really, it's been him and Draymond, really carrying it every single night. Draymond on defense, him on offense. I think he's just been fantastic. 23 points per game. 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I think he's been a little bit more aggressive on defense than what I've seen from him recently, or in a couple of previous years here. He's efficient. He's just deadly, obviously, from three. You can never go wrong with Stephen Curry. I think we somehow still like underappreciate him on some level. He was the guy that I considered for fifth for
Okay,
MVP.
interesting.
For what it's worth.
So to your point there, I was thinking that I might actually leave Steph off because I was like, man, he's kind of having a down year. And then you look at the numbers and you go back and check the notes. It's like, okay, no. He's playing less than 30 minutes. Like when you look at the top, when you look at the top scorers in the NBA, where he's roughly like 30th or something like that, but he's one of the lowest minute per games guys. He's less than 30, but he's 47, 43, 94, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, all of that stuff. All three of these guys were right there in my, like the next guys of my, top guys of my third team. Honestly, I think I had a harder time finishing out my third team. I'm really fascinated to see how you finished out your third team, because I kind of struggled with a couple guys at the end of this. Like, okay, they're not quite as good as last year. Their teams aren't winning as much. But no, Steph ended up right there. Like I kind of woke up. I was like, okay, you're being ridiculous. He's obviously a part of this.
So I ended up with Franz Wagner, second team. We've talked about Luka. I don't know that we need to dive a ton more into Luka's year this year. Franz is my last second teamer. He's averaging 23.6 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.8 assists per game. I mean, if you've watched them since Paulo's gone out, like you get it. Yeah. Like he has been everything for them. Again, from a value perspective, like to his team, I would say Franz is in the top 6 or 7 right now in the league. Once Paulo gets back, that will change, obviously, but he's shooting 47% from the field, 35% from three, 85% from the line, despite the fact that, again, like when you watch them, he has to create like everything himself.
Yep.
He and Jalen Suggs, and like mostly it's not Suggs, it's him, are so responsible for initiating just every single thing within the structure of their scheme.
Yeah.
And for him to do what he has done to this point this year is just kind of like, it's like almost a little bit like mind boggling to me. And oh, by the way, on top of it, I don't think he is quite an all defense guy, but I would have him in the top 25-ish so far, like top 30-ish.
Yeah.
On defense among like everybody in the league this year. He's a killer defender. He is awesome in help situations. He is a really good on ball defender. He is killer within that scheme that Orlando has, where they are top 3 in the league right now in defense. On both ends of the court, I just think Franz has done every single thing this year and is deserving of so much credit.
And he's doing that with a team that doesn't space the floor. I mean, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I witnessed it with a rebuilding team that couldn't do it. Jalen Suggs, 32%. His brother, Mo Wagner, 33. Anthony Black, 29. KCP, less than 30%. So when we talk about some of these Magic players and we thought KCP was going to be the glue that put it all together, not a great start to the year for him. Tristan da Silva's at 36. But as a team, they're 29th in the NBA in 3-point percentage. So I was a little more comfortable with him at third team. Maybe this is a little bit of like not relinquishing the old guard of, if you look at my list, right, I kind of went with the names of guys who I think are really, really good this year and have had awesome seasons. But, I feel like the difference between your list and my list, especially with Franz and Victor and me keeping Kyrie, Jalen, Kevin Durant on here, was just like, you were a little more willing to put that new blood in there where I'm maybe holding on to it just a little bit longer.
I was. Yeah. Let's talk about Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant is our next overlap. I had KD as my top player on the third team. Okay. The only reason that KD is not, honestly, KD would have been 5th for me in MVP if he hadn't missed, I believe, 7 games.
Yeah. He's only played 12 games, but in those games, his team is 10-2 and he's averaging 27-7 on 53, 43, 80. I just, again, sometimes it's just like, who is the best player left on my list right now? And even at his age, even with the health concerns, all of that, I just still think Kevin Durant is really, really good at basketball and really impactful.
Full scale assassin mode this year for Kevin Durant. He's been unbelievable when he's been on the court. The other thing I will mention with Kevin Durant, he has been enormous for them on defense.
Yeah.
Like Nurkic has been a serious problem for them. And when KD is out there, it is workable because he is flying around everywhere on defense. His length is a serious hindrance to what opposing offenses want to run. I think he's just been enormous. He has been utterly enormous this year for the Phoenix Suns. He's been, again, seriously, I would have Kevin Durant at 5th right now in MVP if he hadn't missed time. It's just that he's missed a third of the season so far. So I just ended up docking him down to 3rd team because of that.
Yep.
Okay. Kyrie and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was my number 16 player.
Okay.
So I ended up with him. I wanted to kind of spread it around
Fair.
a little bit.
Sure.
And it came down to me to Jaylen Brown and Jalen Williams. And we'll talk about that maybe in the next team because neither of us have Jaylen's second team. Do you want to talk about Jaylen Brown at all here?
No, I mean, my thing with him is like, I tend to these awards specifically kind of weight team success. We talked about with Donovan Mitchell. The Celtics, again, I think are one of the 2 best teams in the NBA between them and the Thunder. And so, and on top of that, I think he's been very good. He's averaging 25, 6, and 4 defends. The percentages aren't great from the field. I think that's probably the biggest knock. If you just look at his overall field goal percentage, even his 3-point percentage, I understand. I wasn't as strong on him as I'm interested where you had Kyrie, because I just think Kyrie has been awesome this year. And so I'm assuming you had Kyrie not even really in contention.
I had Kyrie in the group with De'Aaron Fox and Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. Like once, and Jalen Brunson is in this group as well. And I picked the best of that group.
Okay.
Who I had, and we'll talk about who that was in the 3rd team. I just ended up going with one of those players ahead of him.
Okay.
Basically. Kyrie's been unbelievable this year. He's been a top 25 guy for me for sure. Yeah, it was hard for me to get 2 Dallas guys as well.
That's fair.
In all honesty, given how inconsistent he's been points this year.
No, I get that completely. I understand it. I've watched their games and I'm just like, this dude is unbelievable. All of the stuff we know about him, but I just always like to appreciate the left-hand finishing, the finesse. He's over 50% from the field as a small guard, 47% from 3, 88% from the line. He's almost 5 rebounds, over 5.5 assists. Like, I think he competes defensively. I just think he's been awesome. And so I wanted to reward that because he was the name as I went through him, just as I thought about guys. What did I think about him when I watched? I thought he had been incredible this year.
Okay. 3rd team all NBA through the first 20 games of the year. Kevin Durant for me.
Mm-hmm.
Top name.
Yep.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay.
Jalen Brunson.
Okay.
Alperen Şengün. Jalen Williams.
Okay.
Who are your 3rd team names?
So I had Brunson. I had the 2 Jalen's as well, with Jaren Jackson Jr. right off. I think as we go through this, one thing I probably when we talk about defensive player of the year stuff, maybe I didn't give guys enough, like, hey, we're going to give them defensive conversation. So I maybe didn't weight as much all NBA stuff. Sure. So my 3rd team then ended up Steph, Franz, Victor, Jalen.
Stephen Curry, Victor Wembanyama, and then who was so Brunson, Williams, Curry, Victor, and who was the 5th?
Franz.
Okay. So we've talked about a bunch of your names here, and we're going to go through most of my names as well. We've talked about Durant.
Yep.
Let's talk Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
So it came down to me to him, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Kyrie Irving is like a guard that I knew that I wanted kind of on here in terms of representation. I also really strongly considered who has been more important to the Knicks to this point.
Yeah.
Him or Karl Anthony Towns.
Yep.
I ultimately went with Brunson over Towns because I think that while Towns is a better defensive player than Jalen Brunson, I think that the structural issues that the Knicks are having defensively kind of center on Towns a little bit more at the center position, where for a huge swath of the season to this point, he's been asked to play and drop, where he's just like not super successful. And he's been asked to do like kind of things on defense where he's not been valuable on that end. Brunson gets attacked more, but I also do think that on offense, while Towns has been better for himself on offense, he's been more efficient as a scorer. He's been better on the block. He's been just fantastic kind of across the board. I think that Brunson's ability to get the ball to people in the right positions for such a new team, with like integrating Anunoby more fully, integrating Towns at the start of the year, integrating Mikal Bridges, I think that that has been a little bit more critical to the Knicks offense at the end of the day. So I went Brunson over Towns. If you have Towns over Brunson, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to fight you. I completely get it. But I think Brunson has been just a little bit better, because I think this is probably his best passing and playmaking year that I have seen from him to this point in his NBA career.
Yeah. And I mean, I was a little bit okay with leaving a Knicks player off completely. They are fourth in the East. They are 11-8. The offense has been really good. We've discussed, you've really broke down the defensive concerns. And I ended up having the same conversation with myself of Brunson versus Cat. I landed on Brunson. I mean, he's still averaging 26 and 8 on 49, 41, 84. So it's not like the numbers aren't still very good for Brunson. So for a lot of the same reasons as you, that's why I ended up with him as the Knicks person. And I mean, he was essentially my last guy that I had here, with De'Aaron Fox was a name, Jaren Jackson Jr., obviously. Anthony Edwards, I think, is one that I'm interested to see the pushback on that, because the numbers are still really good for him. And a couple other guys as well. But those were the hot names that I was considering for that last spot.
Okay, we both have Jalen Williams here.
Yeah.
I mentioned that I want to talk about him versus like Jaylen Brown and why I went with him over Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Jaylen Brown missed those like 4 or 5 games or whatever. And I think Jaylen has missed 1, maybe. Jaylen to me has been a better defensive player this year. I think Williams to me this year has been a better defensive player. I think he has been like damn near an elite defensive player across the league this year. He's just obviously a more efficient player across the board. And if you look, over the course of his last, I think it's last 12 games or so, where they've like really, really needed him to step up. And Jaylen hasn't missed any games yet. I thought he missed 1 to start the year because he was dealing with that. Well, he was dealing with something coming into the year, maybe like a groin injury or something. I think that the overall passing and playmaking from Jalen Williams is better. I still don't know why he doesn't get foul calls. It's kind of like, I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out like why that team just does not get foul calls in general. Like, it feels like they drive more than anybody in the league and they should probably be getting those calls, but they just don't. Williams, is kind of the prime guy because he's so physical, but he's just been a monster. He's been unbelievable. And on top of it, I probably gave him a little bit of extra credit for stepping in and playing the center position when the team had literally nobody at the center position.
No centers.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might be like a little bit unfair. Like, I'm willing to say like that could be just like slightly unfair, and I'll acknowledge that and move past it. I think that deserves just like a small amount of credit to this point in the year. That effect will probably go away as the season goes on, and they have Hartenstein now, and they have, they will get Chet back in all likelihood. So I ended up going with Jalen Williams over Jaylen Brown, who I think they've been like very close. If you want to have Jaylen Brown ahead of him, I'm not going to argue. But Jalen Williams over the course of his last 13 games is averaging 23, 6 and 5, shooting 56, 40, 86. has been a monster on defense just across the board to me. I just think he's a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing there is when you look, the numbers are very similar. Obviously, Jaylen Brown averages a few more points, but the rebounds and assists are relatively the same. And J-Dub is just, quite honestly, he's more efficient of a scorer, shooting over 50% from the field.
Jaylen Brown has not shot super well.
Yeah, no. And I think that's fair. And I think it's fair to point it out along with, defensively. So, yeah, like I think J-Dub is very deserving of this. I think the thing with the center thing where maybe you're not overvaluing that, you brought this up with Tatum. When you start to look at these things and say, okay, is this guy who nudges a guy a little bit more? Versatility really comes into play for that. And I think J-Dub has shown that in spades during his time with the Thunder, whether it's, hey, you play second fiddle to SGA when he's on the floor, but be the main guy whenever he's off the floor, go play center, go guard this guy or play, whatever. He's been willing and able to do all of those roles. And that's very vital. That's very valuable to a team.
Jaren Jackson Jr. to this point has just been like so critical to Memphis. Yeah. Memphis is 13-7. They are third in the Western Conference as of the time of this recording. He has played the second most minutes on this team because he missed 2 games, whereas Santi Aldama has not missed 2 games. But he's averaging 22.2 points. That is leading the Memphis Grizzlies in scoring. 6 rebounds. He still doesn't pass the ball super well, but I think his defense has actually been pretty damn close to the level that it was back when he won Defensive Player of the Year. They are currently 4th in defensive rating. He has been monster as a shot creator for a team that has just like really needed shot creation. So I went with him over some of the other guards, plus Evan Mobley as well. I think his offense has been better than Evan Mobley's offense to this point, with them having pretty similar impacts on defense. And I think that by and large, his defense is a way bigger differentiator to me than all these other guards that we considered here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And, we talked about this last year where they went through all those injuries and it's like, oh, Jaren Jackson Jr. is having to play in this role that he's not going to have to whenever Ja and Bane are back. But now we're seeing kind of the fruits of what he went through last year as he's putting up these numbers on the offensive end. But because those guys are back and because they're getting such good play from other players, now this year he's doing it much more efficiently. Last year it was 44% on 17.5 attempts, which was a career high by almost 5. He's split the difference at 15.5 attempts, but he's shooting 52%. 3-point percentage still isn't great, but he has gravity out there. The rebounding's always going to be a question mark with him. But as you mentioned, it seems like the defense, now that I feel like he's found the sweet spot of his career, Sam, where it's, okay, this is my usage offensively, where I can not only be efficient, but also this type of difference maker on the defensive end. And once you find that, then that's huge for him and for this Grizzlies team. So I'm with you. He was right there on my short list of guys that I wish I could put on third team.
Jason Crawford just brings up a good point in the YouTube comments while we're live here.
Yeah.
He's benefiting a great deal from getting a chance to work on his shot creation last year with all the injuries. I agree. Like, he just looks more comfortable being able to create his own shot right now than what he did previously. And it's paying off. It's paying off in a big way.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk Şengün. I wanted to get a Rocket on here. I think they're deserving of having a representative to this point. I think Şengün has been their best player throughout the start of the season. Fred has just been a little bit too up and down. Jalen Green has not been very good, frankly, to start the year. Dylan Brooks is not an all-NBA player. Jabari Smith has been a little bit too up and down. Amen Thompson is not an all-NBA player yet, but this is not the last time we'll be saying the name Amen Thompson. Şengün, to this point, is averaging 18.7 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. The scoring on the interior has not been great, in all honesty. He's shooting 47% from the field, in large part because he is not making shots around the basket. But I think that he is the most critical reason why they are where they are right now, which is second in the Western Conference at 14-6. And a big reason for that is that his defense has improved drastically.
Yeah.
He is not like an all defense guy. He's nowhere near that level, but he has gotten some like Jokic-y stuff figured out, where
Yeah.
he's good with his hands. They have figured out a scheme that works for him, and he's able to at least kind of make it work on that end. Honestly, I don't think he's probably been a top 15 player in the league this year, but this team just deserves somebody on an all NBA team at the end of the day. And that's probably a bullshit way to do this, if I'm being transparent. But
No.
at the end of the day, like, they're one of the 4 best teams in the league right now, or 5 best teams in the league right now, based off of record, and are deserving of something. And by the way, like, they're 4th in net rating as well. Like, it's not just, there's some like weird things happening with their record. They just are a really good basketball team at this point. And in part it's depth, but like, they need somebody to score and like center this offense, and Şengün deserves that on some level.
Yeah, I mean, on B-Ball Reference, it actually says they should be 15-5, based on whatever little, calculation they have based on points scored, points against, whatever. So yeah, there's nothing lucky or whatever about it. I mean, it would be bullshit of me not to accept you putting Şengün on there whenever I've talked about, hey, you got to have Donovan Mitchell or a representation of the Cavs on the list because of how good they've been. The Rockets have been incredible.
Yeah.
I wish maybe I should have found a spot for him on the list. This was hard, especially right now where, it almost gets easier as the season goes on. And honestly, guys, you're like, nope, they're not going to be able to make the list because of games played. A lot of guys are playing really well right now. So I did not have him on third team. Completely understand with the way he has played and how they have played and wanting to get a representation of the Rockets on there. And 20 games from now, maybe his efficiency around the basket goes up and he's averaging 22 and 10 and the defense stays solid and they're still top 4 in the West. So
yeah, and look, like, if you want to have any of the guys I'm about to mention ahead of him, honestly, I think they're all probably better players right now than him. But at the end of the day, like, I just really feel the Rockets deserve a guy here.
Sure.
I do. Other players here: Jaylen Brown, Cat, De'Aaron Fox, Ant, Mobley, LaMelo, Trae Young. I looked at briefly. Anyone else? Kyrie, another one that you had on your list that I didn't have here. Who else?
I mean, LeBron is still putting up silly numbers. Like, if you just look at the stats. So the funny thing with Trae Young,
like, here's the issue with LeBron. Like, they have been better for a good swath of this year without him on the court, because the defense has been like a real problem.
It's so bad. Now, I mean, I had other names, but like, they were just names I put down as I started the list. Like, they've very quickly dropped towards the bottom as other names came up. So I don't think there's anybody else mentioning.
And, probably just worth mentioning some of the names that people will have here, and why I didn't have them. Anthony Edwards, maybe I'll just be transparent on Ant, right? Maybe I am holding him to too high of a standard here. But the Timberwolves are not in the playoffs right now. And I don't know how much of that's his fault necessarily. But even though he's averaging 28 per game, I think his defense has been a bit worse this year. I think that team defense has been a bit worse. They're sitting at like 11th or 12th right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think his end of game, like last 6 minutes of the game decision-making, has really hindered them at times. And his overall passing and playmaking has really hindered them at times throughout the course of the year, especially with the fact that Mike Conley has not been great, especially for the fact that Dante DiVincenzo hasn't really been able to handle any on-ball stuff for them yet at this point. And since Randall has been as bad as he has been for them, maybe I'm holding the deficiencies of other players against him a little bit too much. And maybe I'm holding him to too high of a standard. But I do think that he is not quite up to this level yet. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, again, just another team that like isn't even in the play-in right now. Sabonis is averaging like 20, 13, and 6, but again, they are just not capable really of. I mean, their defense has been okay to this point, but they're just a funky team, man. I don't know what to do with them. I still have no idea what to do with the Kings, which is probably why like I didn't give either of these guys all NBA status. They're just like kind of all over the map when I watch them, and I don't totally know what to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jaren Jackson Jr., Fox, Ant, Mobley, Cat, like those were the guys. Shingun were the next guys up for me. So Fox was right there. I didn't consider Sabonis as much. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I struggled why I didn't think Ant was part of the team whenever I first did the list. And then I looked at his numbers. I was like, shit, like, is this going to look really stupid if I don't have him on there? Ultimately, I didn't end up with it, but maybe I'm, suffering from the same thing where just expectations are really high for him. Maybe I'm, comparing him against himself, and that's, if that's not fair to him, but yeah, I left him. He was right off the list for me as well.
Okay. For defensive player of the year, I had Victor Wembanyama 1, Jaren Jackson 2, Draymond Green 3.
Same.
Okay. So we talked a bit about Victor at the top. The Spurs right now are a top 10 defense in the league. And they are a top 10 defense in the league, despite the fact that they're getting significant minutes from Keldon Johnson, who is really bad on that end. From Harrison Barnes, who could not move last year, like point blank. Chris Paul, who is 39 years old and knows where he's at, like going on that end, and has been really like okay this year, but is still just like not super fast anymore at this point. Julian Champagnie, who has been okay on that end. Like, I don't want to sit here and overstate it or understate it. And Steph Castle, who has been really good on that end, but is a rookie and can have moments of like rookie play out there defensively, right? Malachi Branham, and Malachi Branham particularly, I don't think is very good on defense. Blake Wesley in general, I think has been a little bit more effective on that end this year. But think about that group having a top 10 defense right now. It's all because of Victor.
Yep.
He completely shuts down every single thing on that end of the court. It is staggering how good he is on the defensive end.
The scary thing with this is, as I was thinking about it this morning, Victor's in year 2, 20 games in, he's the front runner for defensive player of the year. How many years in a row is he going to win this thing?
As long as he's healthy, basically.
And that's what, it's crazy. And I think their defense is going to get better, because I do think Steph Castle has all defense level upside on that end of the court. And so you start pairing
Sohan as well, by the way.
Sohan as well. So eventually you can, like, there won't even be the, oh, well, they're not even a top 5 defense or whatever. I think that goes away eventually based on the roster they've started to build around him, because they're going to have other good defenders to make it a top 5 defense. And then there's no argument against him. We've talked about it. We've watched the film. We broke it down. He changes the geometry of the game. He changes the decision-making process in ways that nobody else does to his extent, right? Gobert does, Chet does, but nobody to his extent, along with the recovery ability and all of that he provides.
We've talked about Jaren a little bit on the defensive end. I mean, it probably is worth noting just a little bit more in terms of what he has done on that end to kind of lift them to a top 5 mark in the NBA this season, despite the fact that like they play like Santi Aldama and him and Zach Edey together at times. Like they run out so many weird makeshift lineups. Like Jalen Wells is taking on the opposing team's best player a lot of the time. And Jalen fights, like, I will give him credit for battling and scratching and clawing, but he's not great yet as a like on ball, stopper at this point. Ja Morant has played 10 games this year. Ja is not a great defender. Desmond Bane has played 13 games. Dez is like a pretty good defender. He's physical and strong, but like doesn't cover a ton of ground necessarily out there. Luke Kennard has only played 12. Marcus Smart has only played 10. Like Vince Williams has only played 3. Despite the fact that this team just has dudes coming in and out of the lineup like crazy, he's the constant that keeps them in the top 5 defensive mark in the league. This is why I had him all defense last year when he didn't make all defense for some ungodly reason. They were a top 10 defense in the league, despite the fact that everyone kept coming in and out of the lineup. Why the fuck do you guys think that they're a top 10 defense? It's that guy right there. He's unbelievable.
Who is the Grizzlies' primary perimeter stopper?
No, it's Jalen Wells. It's definitely Jalen Wells.
Thank you. Rookie Jalen Wells, whose scouting report coming into the draft wasn't defensive stopper in the way that it was Steph Castle, or, I mean, this isn't one-to-one, but it wasn't a defensive-minded player like a Ryan Dunn. That was not Jalen Wells' MO coming into the NBA. And that's who starts for them and takes the toughest matchups night in and night out. Now, as we've talked about, I think he's done an admirable job in that role, especially as a rookie. So I'm not trying to take shots at Jalen Wells. What I'm saying is there's a reason, as you said, they're top 6, top 5 in defensive rating when all of these guys are in and out of the lineup, and that is your primary defensive stopper. It's because Jaren Jackson Jr. makes up for all of that. He covers so much ground. He rotates. He's able to recover. It's always impressive how he's able to do that for his team.
Yep. I completely agree. And then Draymond Green, look, another team that is surprisingly really good on defense this year, and it's all him. Like, if you watch a Warriors game, like, I don't even know what the numbers say. Like, I genuinely don't know, like, what his steals are, what his blocks are. They're 6th in defense, and when you watch them, he's the guy pointing and communicating and orchestrating and calling everything out, and very clearly being the captain of this top 6 defense in the league right now. It is insane how good he has been on defense, getting all of these new pieces for the Warriors coordinated enough to where they can make it work on defense. He has been fantastic on that end. And I'll look at the numbers kind of while we're talking. Like, he is the ultimate, though. I don't care what the numbers say in terms of steals and blocks. He's averaging 1 steal and 1 block per game.
Doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter. He is great as a post defender. He covers a ton of ground defensively. He anticipates things at an exceptionally high level. He is everywhere. Every single place.
You mentioned the versatility from this one game against the Mavericks. He has a crazy recovery block of a 3. He tagged all the way into the lane on the rolling big, able to anticipate the pass, recover, and, by the way, saves the ball out of bounds so it starts transition. Couple plays later, what does he do? Takes a charge. Blocks a lob pass in ball screen coverage between Kyrie Irving and Daniel Gafford. Not like just 2 Joe Schmoes, like Kyrie and Daniel Gafford, and he's playing in drop and blocks the lob pass. And then again, back-to-back rim protections of different forms. One, he takes a charge. Another time he gets a rotation block. Like, in this singular game, you're the tag man. You're guarding as the drop guy on the big. You're switching. You're rotating. You're blocking. You're taking a charge. I felt like every note I went back and read on Draymond was he's playing back at the level of defense of his reputation, and he has to be in this conversation right now.
It's just like not even a question for me. In all honesty, it's not. He is unbelievable on that end right now.
Yep.
He's so good. Okay. All defense teams. I assume your top 3 for defensive player of the year made first team all defense.
They did.
My next 2, I had Evan Mobley at 4.
Okay.
I have Amen Thompson at 5.
Interesting. Okay.
So who do you have as your first team all defense?
So I had Suggs up here on first team. This was a little bit of like a magic thing. 3rd in the NBA in defensive rating. So I still had Suggs. And then I couldn't decide on a Rocket. So I was between Tari, Amen, and Dylan Brooks. And so I honestly just wrote those 3 guys' names down. So we can go with Amen Thompson here.
Okay.
Here's where I struggled. Here's where I struggled is I realize how good they are defensively, right? But it's like Amen comes off the bench, and I don't know. I struggled with which player to put there. Brooks plays 31 minutes a night. Amen plays 27. Tari plays 23. Obviously, you felt strongly about Amen, though.
I do. when I watch Amen Thompson, I think he is the best perimeter defender in the league right now, point blank. He is elite on the ball. He is elite in transition. He is elite as a help defender. He is incredible as like a weak side rotational rim protector.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. He's averaging like a block per game and 1.3 steals in 27 minutes per night. I think that his overall impact on the game defensively across all swaths of defense, from help defense at the rim to overall help defense to being able to switch onto players, frankly, 1 through 5 at times, is a little bit more impactful than Dyson Daniels, who just gets like a crazy number of deflections and steals, right? And that's super valuable, and we'll talk about Dyson in a minute here.
Yep.
But I think his overall impact across all of the defensive structures, on top of being switchable and on top of doing everything else there, made me give him the nod as like the perimeter, defender in the league right now. And I love Jalen Suggs, and I have Suggs second team as well. And I think Suggs is incredible. I think that this is a great way to put it from Brian K. People are intimidated by a men's athleticism on the court because they know he's more athletic than everybody on the court. You can feel that.
Yeah.
Like when I like watch him play, like I can feel that like level of athleticism and quickness and twitch and hand-eye and everything. Like, he is unbelievable to me on that end. He is the guy to me that if they ever, if there's someone who can challenge Victor outside of like maybe Cooper down the road, like he's the one right now I think that could challenge Victor.
Well, and from a Knicks game early in the year, I was really impressed of how he played Jalen Brunson, because you get a guy that athletic that has these great ball skills and anticipation and athleticism, but he did a great job just staying down on Brunson. As we know, there's not a lot of guys better than Jalen Brunson taking advantage of overzealous defenders, getting to the foul line, those type of things. And for a young player like Amin to stay down and stay solid was really impressive. So, we've talked about that defensive upside for a while now. And again, the Rockets second in the NBA in defensive rating, so obviously deserve to have a player here.
Yeah. Okay. Evan Mobley, we talked about a little bit at the top. I'm typically back and forth on Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley in terms of like who the most important guy for that overall defense is. This year, I do think it's been Mobley, just by like a small amount.
I agree.
When I watch Mobley, I feel like his switchability, his ground coverage has just been like a little bit more important for them over the course of this. So, yeah, I generally would say I will go Mobley over Allen, and Mobley as like a very critical defender this year.
Yep, I'm there as well. Like that was my one thing. I think it specifically came out of the Celtics game. I thought Mobley's defense in that game was definitely better than Jarrett Allen, and that's where things kind of just those minute differences between the two really stood out. And I would have Mobley over Allen, 12th in defensive rating, so not quite as high as some of these other teams, but I definitely
they've been okay.
I definitely have Mobley over Allen as well.
Yep. Okay. Second team for me.
Yep.
Jalen Williams, Jalen Suggs, Dyson Daniels, Bam Adebayo, Chris Dunn.
Okay.
Second team for you.
So I had Dyson and Bam. Same as you.
Yep. I
had Lou Dort. So this is where we'll probably have a conversation.
On my long list. Yep.
Okay. So that gives me 3. Derek White / Drew Holiday. I felt like I needed to get a Celtic on there.
Pick one.
I think Drew Holiday is more versatile.
Okay. I would pick Drew out of those two as well, for what it's worth. And then I need one more.
Let me go through my list here. I already had Bam on here, right?
You do. That is correct.
So I had a Clipper as well. I just didn't know who to pick. So put Dunn on there for me.
Okay. So let's talk about Dunn, because I think the
Yeah.
Dunn is just like a really interesting one on some level. I was between him and Zubats, like,
Okay.
for them in terms of like who is the most important defender on this team, who is this, who is that, right? If you look at any of the on-off numbers for the Clippers at this point, it's like very clearly Dunn.
Okay.
Chris Dunn, when he is on the court, the Clippers have a 101.6 defensive rating. They are plus 10.8 as compared to their opponent. It's ridiculous. Like they are so much better with Chris Dunn on the court. If you look at it compared to Zubats, with Chris Dunn and Zubats on the court, they have a 100 defensive rating, which is ridiculous, like completely absurd. With Zubats on the court without Chris Dunn, they have a 114.9 defensive rating. So it goes up almost 15 points per 100 possessions. When Dunn is on the court without Zubats, they still have a 105 defensive rating, which says to me, Dunn's ball pressure, ground coverage, on ball, everything like that is probably a little bit more important in terms of like the pressure than what Zubats' rim protection is bringing them. And I feel like when I watch them, it's more that they do have a really good interior presence, but it's the way that they cover ground around James Harden that is making them such a high level defense with Derrick Jones Jr. and with like guys like Terrence Mann and with guys also like Norman Powell, who's been pretty okay on defense this year, I think, as well.
Amir Coffey. So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like when Zubac is off the court, it's not like the Clippers are known for their backup bigs at this point in the season. So it's not like there's some backup center coming in that's really protecting everything for them. So yeah, my hesitation there was I had initially had Chet on this list as well, and then took him off, based on the conversation we had at the top. But I did really want to get a Clipper on here because they're a top 4 defense. We've talked about how good the defense has been all year. So I like that with Chris Dunn.
I'm realizing I don't have Bam Adebayo on my list here. We'll have to edit that real quick. No, on the list I have on the screen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Bam though. Bam is still just everywhere on defense. When you watch him, he just flies around. He is so capable of switching and recovering and getting everywhere across the court. Has not been a great offensive season for him to this point, but he is like literally the whole reason that they are in the top 10 defensively right now. Like I'll shout out Haywood Highsmith here as well. I think Haywood Highsmith does an incredible job on that end of the court. He flies around, he takes on tough matchups. But look, this is a team that is playing like Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, like significant minutes right now.
Lots of minutes. Yep.
And still like making it work on defense at a high level because Bam is really, really good on that.
Yeah. They've had to play those guys a lot of minutes in the year. They're still the 16th offense in the NBA, but Hero is their leading scorer right now. Duncan Robinson is 5th. That they've had to play those guys. And so you're right. As a top 10 defense, it's all predicated on what Bam does, how he recovers for people, how he makes up for people's mistakes. I'm glad you mentioned the offense. I know that's not what we're talking about right now. Has been a little bit of a struggle this year. Would like to see a little bit more at times whenever I watch them play, but the defense much deserving of this conversation.
Jalen Suggs is the tone setter for Orlando on defense. Point of attack defense is fantastic. He does an amazing job on that end. He does an absolutely amazing, incredible job on that end of the court. Switchable, super aggressive at the point of attack, gets steals, gets deflections, everything like that. He is elite to me on defense. And to me, it was between him and Amen Thompson among like the perimeter defenders. I went with Thompson. I think he's just a little bit better at this point. But if you want to have Jalen Suggs, I understand it. Dyson Daniels is the third guy that's often thrown into this conversation. I think Dyson is just like slightly less impactful across the court. He is great at getting deflections and steals.
Yeah.
And he is like active and aggressive on the ball when he is like locked on the ball with a player. I think that I think he's just a little bit less active than these guys rotationally across the court. And still he ends up being a top 10 defender in the league because the deflections and steals and everything that he does is just so valuable with his hands, and his one-on-one defense is really high level.
Yeah, initially I had him as a first team player. I thought that's where I was going to have him. And then as I continued to go through the list, I bumped him down to second team, but he's right there. Probably a little bit of a tiebreaker there was like he plays on a team that's bottom 10 in the NBA in defensive rating. That's not all his fault. Based on some of the players he plays with. But we talked about how a guy like Bam uplifts everything around him. Jaren Jackson Jr. uplifts everything around him. That may be easier to do from the big position, but at the end of the day, that it is what it is. But he's incredible at what he does at the point of the attack, perimeter, disruption, steals, all of that. I mean, he's been a lot of fun to watch on that end.
Jalen Williams and Lou Dort. We've talked a lot about Jalen Williams here. Yep. Ultimately, I gave Jalen Williams the bump again because he like was asked to play center for a bunch of the time and like had to do all that shit. I also think he's been great on defense this year. He's been fantastic one-on-one. He's been great in help defense. You know, he's had to take on bigger assignments. Lou Dort, like if you just want to have like the better one-on-one defender, I totally get that too. He is as good as anybody in the league at taking on one-on-one matchups against guards and bigger wings.
Yeah,
he is so good at that. So I get having Lou Dort here too.
Yeah, and that's what again, the versatility is a big topic throughout this episode, and I think you could probably argue that J-Dub is the more versatile player, but I just find myself watching the Thunder and Dort's point of attack, defense, aggressiveness, intensity, physicality, I think is a real tone setter on the perimeter as much as anybody. That's just the vibe I get whenever I watch them play. I've always been a big Lou Dort fan. And so I feel at times he can go underappreciated. So maybe that was part of why I went with him of the Thunder players.
Other guys I considered. Rudy Gobert.
Yep.
Somehow holding up that defense, which has been catastrophic this year around him, to like a top 10 mark. I just like decided not to reward anybody from that Timberwolves team. I feel like right now, Dylan Brooks was my hardest cut.
Okay.
I think I've talked a lot about how Brooks has been unbelievable this year on the defensive end. He's been so critical for Houston. He was like, I know people love Tari Eason as well. Brooks was like very clearly the harder cut to me. Brooks has done an incredible job on the ball. Again, just like another tone setter type of player for them. He does an amazing job on the defensive end. PJ Washington is a guy I thought about.
Okay, so I was going to ask what Mavs player we're going to bring up. Was it PJ? Was it Derek Lively? Was it Gafford? Who were we going to talk about? Because this Mavericks team is top 10 in the NBA defensive rating as well.
I went PJ.
Okay.
I think that PJ has been really good guarding on the ball and has been super active and aggressive and has been able to cover a bunch of ground. He's obviously getting a ton of steals and blocks so far this year, as we talked about previously. My guess is down the road, like at the halfway mark, it'll probably be Lively, but PJ has been really good on defense. Drew Holiday, Derek White. I had Dort here. I had Chet as a long list guy, still even having played 10. And Zubats as well was another guy I really strongly considered.
And for what it's worth, PJ is also top 20 in the NBA in defensive rebounds. So when you only look at defensive rebounds, and that's obviously a part of, finishing off a defensive possession. So just a little bit more added to the case for PJ.
Yep. The Pistons are 13th in defense. He was like way down the list, but like I did look at Isaiah Stewart briefly.
So I made a joke on, I think it was your live stream. I made a joke on about Isaiah Stewart. Can you make all defense coming off the bench? I mean, he's a long list guy. He is he's their best defender right now. Asar's about to be back. I would guess that changes, but we'll see.
I kind of think it's still going to be Stewart a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We shall see. Okay. Next up. Let's go most improved player. Let's
Okay.
get some of these smaller ones out first.
Okay.
Most improved player for me, I had number 1, Franz Wagner.
Okay.
Number 2, Ty Jerome.
Okay.
And number 3, Norman Powell.
Okay. Love it.
Who was your list?
So I had all of those guys on my list as well. We've talked about Ty Jerome. We talked about Franz. Norman Powell, obviously having an incredible list. I also had on my list Christian Brown, Grady Dick, Benedict Mathurin, and Scottie Pippen Jr.
It's a good list. It's a good group. Is that your actual list?
Yep.
Okay. So Christian Brown, Ben Mathurin,
Grady Dick, Scottie Pippen Jr., Ty Jerome.
Okay, so Grady Dick would be third then. You only get 3 for these ones.
Oh, my bad. So
That's
Brown, Grady Dick, Benedict Mathurin.
Yep. Okay. So I think Grady Dick's a good name. Like, I typically don't love doing second-year guys on this thing just because like it
Agreed.
feels like that sophomore jump. But he was not very good last year.
Yeah.
And he is like genuinely taking a big leap. Mathurin has been really good. I like that one. Mathurin has, been effective on offense, and we haven't talked a lot about him this year. He has taken like a pretty big jump. It's just hard for me to look at that team and give them a ton of awards love either right now.
Sure.
Brown has really stepped into his role. He's been great. I think Ty Jerome is like the player who has taken the biggest jump.
We talked about this. Like, I mean, honestly, if you really gave me a ballot, I would vote Ty Jerome, but we had this conversation, so I wanted to throw some other names out.
I love Ty Jerome so much. Can we spend a couple of minutes here on Ty Jerome?
Absolutely.
Ty Jerome was not a guy like a year ago. So Ty missed like most of last season, right? But like 2 years ago, he was not a guy that I felt super great about playing minutes. If you remember, Warriors fans would lose their mind when Steve Kerr would like put him in the game because like he just struggled on defense. And I know why he would put him in, because like he just knew what he was doing. But the shooting, the playmaking, the passing, the ability to get into the lane, the herky jerky dribble shit that he does, all of it has been so impactful for the Cavs this year. He's on my 6th man of the year list as well. Like, he has been incredible to this point. Wagner, we've talked a lot about. I just think the leap from,
it's really
where
hard.
he was to now being like second team all NBA for us.
It's a great call.
It's just important to
It's a
have
great
here.
call.
And I had Norm Powell just because, Norm Powell is stepping into a massive role now instead of being a 6th man. Has been their, second or third most important player along with Zubats, and has been amazing.
Yep. I just want to continue on Ty Jerome. You mentioned the pace. He plays with a very, very unique pace and has a little bit of deceleration, which that his passing is nice. What I love about Ty Jerome, he can play on or off the ball. So we talk about the on-ball stuff, but then he has a clinic tape off-ball relocation as well. And then you watch a game and he may make some back-to-back defensive plays. This Nets game, he got an on-ball versus Schroeder that led to shot clock violation, gets a steal, hits some floaters. He's just done it all for them. So I love the Ty Jerome. Obviously, I've talked about this. Like, Franz should have been at the top of my list based off what I believe in terms of, I think it's harder to make the jump that Franz has made than maybe some of these other names. But I'm glad you put him there. I think Scottie Pippen Jr. is a good name as well. And I even considered both of the Pistons backcourt guys this season. Like, I don't think they should be on the short list, but Cade and J.I. both are on my long list of just guys who are playing. The Pistons are better this year, and if people don't know, it's mostly because of those two in terms of players. There's coaching and other things as well, but Cade has made a real leap, and J.I. has as well.
Okay, coach of the year. I have Kenny Atkinson, Mark Daignault, and I have Missoula here. I understand that might not be super popular, but like, I just think that Missoula is a stud. Who are your three?
I went Kenny Atkinson, Dagnall, and I went Jordy Fernandez because him getting this
Yeah.
Mets team to anywhere close to 500 is incredible. And so I went there. Jamal Mosley, I would love to throw his name out as well, like since you didn't have him on yours, but I wanted to throw Jordy in there.
I don't hate that call at all. The fact that they are even competitive is such a statement on Jordy Fernandez.
Yeah.
He looks like an awesome basketball coach. I am full scale in on this pick for you.
The other name I wanted to sneak in there, and I hope this guy is doing well and resting up and healthy. How about Mitch Johnson and what he's done, stepping into the shoes of a legend during the middle of a season and continuing to coach that Spurs team? So
And they've been better with him, in all honesty, than what they were with Pop.
That was another name I wanted to throw out.
Kenny Atkinson, just the free flowing offensive nature, everything like that. Like
buying into roles,
so critical for them, getting those guys to buy into roles, figuring out how to make all of their depth pieces work. I think Atkinson's been fantastic as a new coach there. Dagnall is just a stud. If you made me say who I think the three best coaches in the league are right now, it would be Dagnall, Spo, and Missoula, I think.
What about Ty Lue?
I would have Ty Lue in the top 5 for sure.
Okay, cool. Perfect. We're on a similar page.
Other names here, I considered Ime Udoka. Obviously, they're 14-6 with the Rockets right now. Some of his offensive stuff drives me a little bit crazy, which is why I ended up not going with him. But if you want to have Ime here, I have all respect for that.
He was in my top. He was in my top 5. I also mentioned like Taylor Jenkins. I don't think gets enough credit sometimes. Like we sit here and talk about how this team is injured and people are in and out of the lineup and all of that. I think he keeps it together. And just to throw him a bone, I wrote JB down for the long list because that was a shit show last year and it's not a shit show through 20 games this year.
Honestly, a good point. Okay, 6th man of the year.
Pritchard, Hield, Jerome.
I have Pritchard, Amen, Jerome.
I figured
right now.
Yep.
Give me thoughts on Peyton Pritchard.
Awesome. Does he ever miss a shot? On the best team in the NBA, and he's playing a huge role coming in off the bench, and he's shooting 44% from 3 on insane volume, averaging 16 points a game. Shooting well from 2 on top of that, Sam. Like, I know it's not very much volume, but, over almost 65% on 2s. I think he's really good. I love the Amin call. Maybe I was splitting too much votes between Amin and Tari Eason because, like, I have their names written down together as the next 2 names. So maybe I needed to differentiate between those 2 the next time we do this. But, and then I think Buddy has been really good. We've talked about the Warriors' depth, and so I felt like I kind of wanted to reward that in a sense with Buddy, I guess.
Yeah, Buddy, I ended up with him at like 7th or 8th, I think. He's tailed off recently is why.
Sure. Yeah.
He's been really, really big for them, especially early in the year when they were racking wins. I mean, Peyton Pritchard, what he's doing offensively right now is just like mind-blowing on some level, right? Like he's averaging 16 points a game. 3 assists. He's shooting 48, 44, 88. Like he's just been completely obscene. Everything he's done is absurd.
Yeah, he's been awesome. We've talked about him. We talked about these. So I think Malik Monk is going to get into this conversation the more the season goes on. Scottie Pippen Jr. was another name I had. Honestly, Sam, people are about to get pissed at me, but Malik Beasley has been really good for the Pistons off the bench this year. Like really good.
I don't disagree with that.
40% from 3 on almost 9 attempts. He's one of the leading bench scorers in the NBA. A sneaky name to watch, Najee Marshall. I feel like has started to figure out with Dallas and figure out his role. He should not be in this conversation right now. I just wonder if he is in one of our next upcoming iterations.
All right. So rookie of the year for you. This was the hardest one for me in part because like there aren't a ton of crazy good rookies. There are really 5, I would say. Like first team all rookie was the easiest list I made the whole time.
So we'll be interested. We have the same 5. I bet we don't have the same 5. So I have McCain, Castle, Wells, Connect, Risa Shea.
Okay. So McCain, Castle, Wells for you. So we have the same top 3 for rookie of the year.
Not in the same. Did you go Castle or you went McCann? Oh, we have the same order even. Okay.
We have the same order. Top 3 across the board.
Nice.
Jared McCain has just been like a godsend and a savior for that 76ers team. Yeah, like a total disaster. He's averaging 16 points on 45, 36, 90 right now. People can look at it and say like good stats on a bad team, but if you watch him play, it's not that at all. Like it's not remotely close to that. His ability to relocate, his ability to create off the bounce a little bit, like he's doing it fairly efficiently. He has been enormous, in my opinion, for them.
He did not score well against the Pistons on Saturday, but he threw 2 absolute dimes, like one cross-court live dribble with his right hand and one baseline hammer with his left hand in a crowd. Like that was, he didn't score it well. And I also thought his defense was a little bit better than what I'd seen in previous games. So I'm interested to watch that if at least the point of attack defense starts to grow just a touch and a tiny bit throughout the season.
Yep. Steph Castle, we've talked about a little bit as we talked about Wemby. I feel like Castle's one of those guys who like the numbers don't even tell like the full story with him. When you watch him, I've done like full videos on Castle at this point. I think I've done multiple of them. 12 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, but he's a killer defender. His thing is the shooting is just not there necessarily at this point, but the overall impact because of his defense, because of the way he moves the ball, having like a second ball handler out there has been really critical. I think for the Spurs in general, and typically Castle is that second ball handler that they have out there with Chris Paul. He's been absolutely fantastic to this point. And then I went Jalen Wells over Dalton Connect because Wells has just done it the full year, whereas it's been stop-start for Connect at this point. Connect's best has probably been better than Jalen Wells' best, but Jalen Wells is, the starting shooting guard on a team that is 13-7 right now and averaging 12 points, shooting 45, 40, 77, and taking on the toughest defensive assignment. Dalton Connect has been really good. Connect is averaging the same number of points. He's shooting 50, 43, 89. The difference between the two is that Wells is taking on the toughest assignments defensively, and they have to absolutely do the best that they can to hide Dalton Connect defensively when he's out there on the court for the Los Angeles Lakers. I still have Connect 4th, though.
Yeah, so I have Connect 4th. I mean, Jalen Wells has played the most minutes of any rookie in the NBA this year. And as you mentioned, I think the selling point to me is he's starting on a team that's good and he's taking those defensive matchups we mentioned earlier. Yeah, I thought those 3 were pretty easy. I thought Connect at 4 was pretty easy. I struggled at 5 and even after that just a little bit. So I'm interested to see who you had at 5.
Yeah, I just had Zach Edey is like very clearly 5.
Okay.
To me, he's averaging 11 and 7 and shooting like 60% from the field. And if you like in games where he's not playing a floor spacer, he's just like super impactful on the defensive end as a rim protector. So yeah, I ended up with him. So very clearly the 5th guy.
So this is where I continue to like, maybe I need to change my process. I continue to look at totals for rookies for whatever reason. I don't know why my mind always goes here to like, how many minutes have guys played? And Risa Shea has just played almost double the amount of minutes as Edey. And I don't know why, like, I got to figure this out, like why it matters to me so much with rookies, specifically the amount of time they're on the floor. So that's why I ended up with Risa Shea. I had Edey easily number 6 though.
Yeah, no, fair enough. My second team all rookie, Risa Shea was really the only guy that I felt was like necessary here.
Yeah.
I ended up with Ryan Dunn, Bub Carrington, AJ Mitchell, and Donovan Clingan.
Okay. I went Bub, Sar, Misi, and Dunn with AJ Mitchell right there.
Bub, Sar, Missy, and Dunn. Honestly, I'm probably missing Eve Missy and should put him on over AJ Mitchell. Eve Missy has been better than AJ to this point. I've loved AJ, but you're right to do that. So I will adjust mine and go Risa Shea, Missy, Carrington, Dunn, and Clingan.
Yeah, and I thought about Clingan as well. I think that was probably a minutes thing as well. Like I got to figure this out. But and listen, like I'm probably wrong with Sar here. Like he's had some games. It hasn't necessarily always been great, but Messi has played real minutes. Dunn's played minutes for the Suns. I had AJ Mitchell as the next guy as well. And then Klingon, De Silva on my short list. Silva started some games for the Magic. And then, after that, Keyshawn George has played a lot of minutes. I don't think he's been as impressive as a lot of these other guys.
Yeah. Okay. That's all we got on
nice.
awards here. We're through
Perfect.
it. We're done.
Nice. Very
Hour
good.
55. We zoomed through after all NBA and all defense.
Yes. Yep.
Those are the two that I really care about. Like,
yeah.
In all honesty, like I care way more about figuring out who the best NBA players are and who the best defensive players are.
Yeah, I love it.
6 Man of the Year, Most Improved. Like, I'm not concerned about those. In all honesty, Coach of the Year is so fickle, across the board. Rookie of the Year is important. I do care about that. This year, I'm just like a little bit less into that one than anything because there aren't like a crazy number of high impact rookies. But I would say the first two like categories are always the ones we're going to focus on a little bit more here. I think
I'm excited to do it the next time. I obviously will keep this around and then kind of see how things have changed. So it was
okay. Fun. Trivia time, Bryce.
All right, we're switching it up, Sam Vecenie. So this is a request or recommendation or idea from Chris Siegel on Blue Sky, and he goes, Bryce, you always give the categories and ask for the names. Why don't you give them the names and see if they can figure out the statistical category and the cutoff point? So we'll do a practice one here first, Sam. So I'm going to give you the names of players, and you have to tell me what their relationship is with the statistical category. Okay. Where are they connected in terms of the statistical category?
Okay.
I'm only doing NBA.com traditional stats: points per game, minutes per game, fouls per game, assists per game, turnovers per game, field goal attempts, like just the initial stuff, right? You with me? So let's practice one here first. If I said to you, Giannis Antetokounmpo and LaMelo Ball, what statistical category would you think those two are tops in?
I don't know if LaMelo's second in scoring, but they're averaging over 30 points per game.
Okay, so correct. Points per game. The number, if it was worth a point, what would you say the number is? What would you say the cutoff is? Because this is important. You got to be able to tell me the exact number now.
I would say they're both averaging over 31 per game right now.
Very good. So ding, ding, ding. 2 points for Sam Vecenie on the practice. Points per game, 31 plus. So you get 1 point for telling me the correct category, which I think you'll do on most of them, and 1 point for telling me the correct cutoff. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
There is a 10 or more games played limit on this.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So to start, it's just one category. The last two, we're going to change it up a little bit. And so what I put your over under at was 13.5 points by the end of the game. So you were playing against 13.5 points. Pass, fail. Okay. All right. Victor Wembanyama, Walker Kessler, Chet Holmgren.
Okay. So category is going to be blocks. And do I need to give you the cutoff first?
Sorry. Blocks is correct.
Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing the cutoff here is like 1.7.
So blocks is correct. Cutoff is too low. The cutoff is actually 2.5.
Wow.
Chet 2.6, Kessler 2.9, Victor 3.6. Brooke Lopez is actually 2.4, Klingon 2.2, AD 2.1. It's not as far off as I thought. There's about 6 or 7 players that would have to go to get below 1.7.
Yeah. And these are all the top guys.
I wanted to keep it simple this week. Like,
okay.
First time, we're just going to keep it simple. These basic stats, and it's everything at the top for right now.
Okay, cool.
All right. Cade Cunningham, Trae Young, LaMelo Ball.
Turnovers.
Okay, so that is 1 point turnovers per game. Can you give me the correct cutoff?
4.
So that is very close. Correct answer is 4.5. LaMelo is at 4.5. James Harden 4.4. LeBron actually also at 4. So
Okay.
very good so far with so I guess to be clear here, the point whatever does matter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one. LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Brandon Miller.
Made threes?
That is incorrect. It is 3-point attempts per game. Can you tell me the cutoff?
180.
Per game.
9-4.
So the correct answer is 10. It actually could even be 10.5. Brandon Miller's at 10.6, Tatum 10.6, Anthony Edwards 10.9, LaMelo 13.1. Just a handful of players between 9.5 and 10 though. So no points on that one. All right. Mikal Bridges, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Edwards.
What?
So I will admit this. I did what I thought were the easiest ones I did first. So they will progressively get a little more difficult.
Mikal,
De'Aaron Fox, and Ant.
Minutes?
Very good, Sam Vecenie. I thought Mikal would give that one away. I thought that's why that one would be a little bit easier. Is that why you got it?
Well, like he got benched a couple.
That's
got
true.
benched like a couple of games here recently. Is why I was like, wait, minutes?
Minutes per game. So can you give me the cutoff for minutes per game?
38.
That's really good guess. It's 37.5. Mikal's at 38.1, Fox 37.8, Anthony Edwards 37.5.
That's gross.
So you were at 3 points right now. Guessing the second part has been a little more difficult than I anticipated. So
impossible. Yeah, I don't get it's 37.5 and I don't get a point for 38. Like
yeah, well,
we might need to make some adjustments.
Our standards are high on the Game Theory podcast, Sam. This is how much I believe in you. All right, let's keep going. More names on this one. We'll see if that makes it easier or harder. Trae Young, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Ja Morant, Cade Cunningham.
It sounds like assists.
Assists per game. Assists per game is correct. Cutoff?
Yeah, I'm thinking 9.
9. Let's go. 9 is correct. 9 points. So what I need to do is make a sliding scale for the number part. I think the next time I do it, like if you get spot on, you get a couple points. If you're within so much, you only get 1 point.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Well, we can make some adjustments. This was a trial run. You've been very good. You got 4 out of the 5 categories. That was your first one getting the number, but as you mentioned, been close. Okay. LaMelo Ball, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Maxey. Remember, so this is every stat on the traditional page. So minutes, points, all the shooting, makes, attempts, percentages, all the reboundings, including offensive, defensive, assist, turnover, steal, block, fouls. LaMelo Ball, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Maxey.
LaMelo, Luka, and Tyrese. So like I'm just gonna think through this out loud real quick, right? Because it's bad to not talk otherwise. I don't think that Luka has made enough threes. I don't think Maxey gets fouled enough. Oh, is this just general shot attempts?
Yep, field goal attempts. Very good. So field goal attempts, number per game. Number of field goal attempts per game.
Oh God.
Here, I'll help you out on it. It's a whole number. It's a no decimal.
24.
Correct answer is 22. LaMelo is at 24.9, Doncic 22.6, Tyrese 22.2.
Yeah.
All right, these next 4 will be interesting. These ones now get harder. The initial part. Those were the easiest ones. LaMelo Ball again, showing up a lot today. Domantas Sabonis, Jakob Pertl.
Fouls.
Fouls. Very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Fouls.
LaMelo's been really bad on defense.
So
This
I
is a
thought
big reason why I do not have him all NBA right now.
I thought LaMelo might give it away on the fouls because I feel like this has been a thing. Can you give me the number?
Oh, fouls per game, 3-5.
3-5. Very good. Right on
Yeah.
the dot. Very good, Sam Vecenie. Jaden McDaniels was in this when I originally put it together, but is no longer. You're actually at 8 points with 6 on the board. So if you finish this out, you would actually, yeah, you have to run it. It's about to get more difficult though. Okay.
No shit.
Yeah. This one, maybe not. Anthony Davis, SGA, Damian Lillard.
Anthony Davis, SGA, Damian Lillard. Made field goals?
Made free throws.
Oh, that's gross.
Yes. So that one was hard. I think Damian throws that one off. Any guess on the number?
Yeah. Per game?
Per game.
8.
6.8 is the number there. All right. Last two are 2 categories. Okay. So you have to give me the 2 categories that these players hit. All right. So it's like they average
it's the
same idea, but there's 2 different numbers. There's 2 different things that they're the only players that are doing this and this.
Yeah, same players. Yeah.
Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic.
Okay, so rebounds
and
AD, Jokic, and Giannis. This would be made field goals.
It is actually so maybe I fudged up here. I did not. It is points and rebounds. Guesses on what the 2 numbers.
LaMelo's ahead of these guys in points,
but he doesn't have the rebounds.
Oh, I thought you were saying that like these 3 guys are the same top 3 in both of these categories.
No. They're the only 3 guys that are doing these 2 statistical things. I should have had an example for this.
Should have had an explainer.
We'll use this as an example. So those 3 guys are the only 3 players that are averaging 27 and 11 points and rebounds.
Is that the number?
Yes. Yeah, because okay, so then we can see if you can do the next one then.
Yeah. I was going to say 20. I think I was going to say 28 and 11-5.
Okay, nice. Okay. I need to change. I just like to make sure I have the right numbers here. Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Cade Cunningham.
Nikola Jokic, LeBron, and Cade. It's like minutes with ball in hand.
No. Like, traditional stats. Okay, so like it's not even shooting stuff. It's just like basic of the big stats, like that we just,
and it's across the board.
So these 3 players are the only 3 that do these 2 things above a threshold. The average.
I would guess. Jokic is one of them.
So okay. So what do those 3 guys do with that nobody else would do? Like what 2 things do they?
Yeah, I mean it has to be like 25 points and 8 rebounds, or not 8 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm sorry.
So it's rebounds and assists.
Rebounds and assists. Interesting.
Yeah. So they're the only players that average 7 rebounds and 9 or more assists.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
So I got to figure out that part. I feel like that didn't hit. I feel like that was more confused. The double stats were more confusing than I thought they were going to be.
The double stats are maybe I'm an idiot is more the key here.
No. Well, I'll get some feedback from people, but the first part I think would be fun. It was designed for you and Andrew to compete as well, which would have been more fun. So
yeah, that was a wild ride. That was a wild ride. I kind of like it.
Shout out Chris Siegel for I hopefully you've seen your name right. He recommended that on Blue Sky. I think he sent me a DM and said you should try out this way. So that trial run, we'll think about it and see if we like it or not.
I like the structure. It's just a little bit more difficult than what I think I envisioned at the jump, doing that one.
Well, so what's hard is like those are the easiest stats I can do it for as well. So like making it easier is almost impossible, I think. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, just start using tracking stuff like potential assists.
Yeah.
Minutes on the ball.
Yeah, this was like
go fucking crazy.
Yeah, go insane. Most isolation frequency.
Yeah, that seems miserable. DeMar DeRozan. No.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on. What have you been watching? What have you been doing with your life here?
We finished season 2 of The Diplomat last night. So that was fun. I don't know what we have in store tonight. I'll probably go get some shots up. Hopefully my kids will go with me. And then a nice evening. School starts back up tomorrow. We have 3 weeks before Christmas break. So that's what I have on tap. You can follow me on Motor City Hoops or at Motor City Hoops on Twitter or on Blue Sky Pistons Polls podcast. If you want to listen to Pistons specific content, I have the Substack with Pistons specific content. If the Pistons play your team, I usually have some pretty good notes for your team. So check out those games if you're not a Pistons fan. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Okay. I have watched recently Conclave.
Okay.
It's a papal thriller, Bryce. Basically, Pope dies and a bunch of catty cardinals have to go and pick a new pope.
Sounds awesome.
It fucking rips, dude. It was awesome. I had so much fun. I watched, oh my God. I have watched Inland Empire recently, which is truly a movie that you would watch and would like turn off in 10 minutes. Maybe not in 10. It's 3 hours. I think you would turn it off at least a third of the way into it because you would be like, I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah. I'm just reading like the plot and some stuff and I feel like I'm out.
Once it goes to, in the Wikipedia description, an unconnected seemingly series of scenes or something like that. Like I haven't read the Wikipedia, but I'm assuming it gets to that point at some point, where Laura Dern is doing this and she's doing that. It's insane. I love it. Watch Saturday Night, the new Saturday Night Live movie that Jason Reitman did. Didn't love that. I thought it was fun, but not amazing. Cooper Hoffman is amazing, but yeah. And then I watched Cold Case: Who Killed John Benet Ramsey on Netflix.
Yeah. How was that?
So I know a lot about that because I grew up in the 90s, right? And I have a weird true crime thing that I like to dig into on things. I thought it was really good when they were digging into like how the police fucked this entire thing up, like really good. And
Okay.
there are other things that bother me
Okay.
with it. Some of the theorying on it was a little frustrating, I thought.
That's actually one that I could see Randy and I watching. That's, we've watched that. We've watched a lot of like the OJ Simpson documentaries that have come out, like some of those true, like you say, those true crime ones. We've dug into quite a few of those, and John Benet Ramsey's one that we have watched ones in the past as well. So I could see us watching this one.
Yeah. I have thoughts on things there that I won't share. Okay. Next episode for us, Bryce, we're going to do half NBA, half NBA draft.
Cool.
We will take questions, send them over on Blue Sky.
Perfect.
We will answer the second half of next week's episode, or not next week, like this Thursday.
Okay.
Bryce and I will answer your NBA draft questions. For the first half, we'll figure out what we're going to do with it. I'm not totally sure yet. We'll talk through that and do something, I'm sure.
Yep.
There will be post-game theories this week. I know that. I don't know the dates yet. My guess as of right now is I will probably do Monday and Tuesday on those. There is not an enormous slate on Monday, but it'll give me a chance to like go back and do some of today's games as well. Like the Celtics and Cavs play again today, right? And
Yeah,
it's super
playing
close
right
at
now.
halftime.
Yep.
Yeah. So we will do that. But Monday, there's not a crazy slate. And then Tuesday, I think, is like the last of the cup games, right? So
Yes.
we'll talk about that on post game theory as well. I will at least do those 2 days if you make me guess. That is all I have right now. I'm going to spend the rest of my day watching NBA basketball and catching up on some college because I still need to do a few games of college hoops. Have you yet done Illinois against Arkansas, Bryce?
I have not. Is that Kasparis?
I would suggest it.
Okay.
Kasparis. Kasparis's close to that game was something special.
Very good.
It was enjoyable. And then I took a bunch of notes on like I've done like Iowa State, Auburn, and like St. Joe's and Texas Tech and shit. Like I'm like kind of all over the map on this stuff. So we'll talk a lot about NBA draft stuff, college basketball stuff on the next episode. We'll do NBA at the top of next episode, and then dive deep into the draft. Go to The Athletic, keep me employed. I will have a top 100 that goes live before that episode comes out. I don't know if it's coming out Monday or Tuesday yet. I will probably recommend to my editors Tuesday because I want to do like one final look through it before it goes live. But outside of that, go to The Athletic, go read that work. Post game theories Monday and Tuesday night. And that's it. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.